everybody that we are live. Hello for anyone who's joining us this early. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation that I am really excited about because I've been exploring style and self discovery and expressing myself. And my friend, oh, I think it just went live. Okay. So, hello and thank you and welcome to this conversation I'm really excited about. Um, if you follow me on Substack, hi Robin, good to see you. Welcome. So if you follow me on Substack, you know that I am exploring style and self-discovery and self-expression through style and clothing. And my friend Josh Miller, who I'll introduce, just launched a really exciting video series around all of that. And I watched the first few episodes and I was like, oh my gosh. So I invited Josh to join me for this conversation. Josh Miller is a multidisciplinary artist, and they've been on a journey to uncover identity through style, exploring different forms of self expression. And this journey has taken them all over the world to explore culture and liberation and transformation and adornment. And they created a series that is called Adorned in Imagination. You can watch it on YouTube and also Substack. Is that
Yep.
right?
It's
Yeah.
on here as well. Yep.
Yes. So I was like, Josh, we have to do this. So Larry, thank you for joining us. So we're just gonna, Josh, is there anything you'd like to say to introduce yourself or like the like where what you do and this journey that you're on?
First off, I'm super excited for this conversation. Like we were talking about a little bit in our previous discussions, just thinking about the journey we've each been on over a decade since we first met, and to be here and to be asking a lot of similar questions and exploring some things that are so have so much intersection. I'm just really excited for this conversation. I think the only thing I might add to description wise is that I am based in Denver, Colorado.
Mhm.
Recently, or in the past few years, moved from Louisville, Kentucky. I'm a nonprofit leader, and I think part of this ongoing exploration and uncovering has really been also connected to place, like you mentioned, place and travel and exploration. So I'm excited to delve into all of that with you.
Me too. Me too. I'd like to start with like you've created this series, and you talking about your journey to explore style as an avenue of self-expression. Can you talk a little bit about how what your journey has been to uncover your identity and to find forms of self-expression? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess a little context for folks is that I grew up on Lookout Mountain, so Chattanooga, Tennessee area, a very small conservative religious community, and I was homeschooled until 10th grade. I'm the oldest of five kids. And so that was not necessarily a community that was really encouraging you to try a lot of different things and to explore, beyond gender norms, beyond specific ways that the community thought was important. So, as a framework, just know that that's where I'm coming from. Because I was like the 2 year old, 3 year old, where there's photos of me like in my mom's high heels, in my diaper, standing on the toilet, in a shower cap with makeup brushes, and the makeup's on the toilet. And then, like, I was the princess, but also the prince, and Robin Hood and Cinderella. So, when I was very young, for me, I was just like, "I'm trying all the things. This is great." And, in the next few years, then that gets stomped out. And there's all of these, this is how boys dress, this is how we behave, this is how we don't behave, this is what we don't do. And so I would say I kind of was in a contained preppy phase for a few years. And then that evolved into more like a emo grunge phase in high school. And then I was as I was starting to explore my gay and LGBTQ plus identity, I was outed and then kicked out. And so I moved from Lookout Mountain to Southern Indiana and went to a public school there and lived with my aunt and cousins. But one of the classmates that I had in the public school, she painted, and she painted with makeup. And this was before like all the YouTube tutorials. None of that existed. I had never been able to play with makeup before, and she did my whole face. And that was just like this one of these first like, oh, this feels right. Like this feels like a way that I can move through the world, that I'm embodying something more.
Mhm.
And so that was, I would say that's where I started allowing myself to wear makeup and trying it out and playing with it, and playing with more a mixture of masculine and feminine clothing and styles. And I would say part of the journey that has informed how I got here is also when we're talking about style and what we have access to. For me specifically, my body fits between men's sizes and women's sizes,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
sometimes kids sizes. So a lot of places I can't just go in and shop off the rack. That doesn't work for my body. That's a conversation you and I have had before about some of
Yeah.
those challenges. And when you layer on top of that, I also struggled with some disordered eating and some body image issue challenges. And so all of those have kind of been layered into how do I find things that let me feel like the best person that I can be and the most authentic person that I can be, and what does that look like? So, going into college,
Mm.
um, I was a lot more flamboyant. I was a lot more exploring what does it look like to be a queer young person, and then once I became a young professional, then I started getting these messages again, even from within the LGBTQ plus community. Sometimes more of it comes from within your community than outside,
Mhm.
depending on the scenario. But it was like, "Oh, remember who we're meeting with today." And that's the code for, you know what you're not like, "Don't wear this, wear
Mhm.
less of this," or "Leave your bag in the car," or just all of these little comments that really got in. And
Mhm.
so I found myself I didn't acknowledge that it was happening at the time, but
Uh-huh.
I was covering and I was retreating back. So
Mhm.
I gave a lot of things away, and I really shifted how I was showing up because I was afraid, and because I felt like I had to be in this tiny little box of this is what a man in the workplace is, and this is what you can be, and this is what you can look like to be acceptable. And part of, I guess, another added layer within this journey has also been an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. And so during that time of as I was covering who I was, my drinking it went up. It increased significantly as a coping mechanism. And what I told myself is I needed it to be social. I needed it. It made me a better person, and that was a lie, and that was a trap.
Mhm.
And so I had this kind of like meeting of the minds moment is the best way I can describe it, where internally there was like this reconciling of I felt so disconnected from my life and who I was, and at the same time was trying to cope with it through alcohol and through controlling what I was eating and like all of these things that I was just clinging to because I wasn't allowing myself to be who I was.
Mhm.
And at that moment, I was able to take a step back and just say, which trade-offs are any of these worth it? And how am I going to shift my thinking to move forward? And Theo, my husband, and I co-founded a nonprofit. So there was I will say, a privilege in being able to make that decision to change in a leadership role. Um, but that was when I stopped drinking. So I've been sober for over 7 years, and I very specifically started what I call uncovering the parts of who I was. I let myself grow my hair out, even though I knew everyone would think I was a woman. I started wearing a lot more just clothing that I loved and that I could search out and that I could enjoy. And as I've moved through that process over the years and have really found like when you find pieces that you love, that you connect to the story of and the designers, that in and of itself is empowering, and it helps you to imagine, like, when you see the different ways people style things and what they create, you then it expands how you think and how you can move through the world. And so that's been the journey I've been on for a number of years, and at this point, it's been interesting thinking back to, like, all of the science fiction and fantasy I read as a young person, Lord of the Rings, just all kinds of books, and how some of the comments I get now are like, you look like you're kind of from an elvish kingdom," or "You're like, this thing is giving Game of Thrones." And so it's just interesting how some of the things that I absorbed early on that were world building and based in imagination are still at play and still informing how I'm showing up. So I'm gonna pause because I feel like that was long-winded, but that's a bit of the snapshot of the journey.
I think it's important that there was a part of you that, like, I think of it as almost kind of like the divine nature in us.
Yeah,
Um, and, I realize that's my faith lens. I believe there's something divine in each of us, but I feel like that there's like your divinity was like, I was seeking being yourself and
yeah.
seeking to break free from all of the cultural expectations or societal expectations. And, um, I think that's really hard to do, to listen to that inner self and that the divinity inside you versus being drowned out or just kind of going with the flow of society. And a lot of people don't make that step, or aren't don't have that courage. It takes courage and bravery. I really am inspired by the fact that you were able and did take those steps to really kind of listen to your inner self and strive to be and reflect yourself. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's been it's like I think in my mind as a young person, there was like this place that you got to and you arrived and it was all done and you were who you were gonna be. And now it's like, no, every day you're like you're a new person. Like you have the opportunity when you wake up to imagine who you are that day and to carry that forward and over and over and over. And I think there's something really freeing about that.
Yeah, and there is, and that kind of leads me to, like, asking about your series because it's called Adorned in Imagination, and, I think that's just such an interesting, like, it opens up kind of like an intriguing concept for
Mhm.
people to think about. Like, I mean, some people just want a closet where they just walk in and, like, they say it's a no-brainer, right? Like,
Yeah.
get all neutrals and it's a no-brainer, and I've been kind of like, I don't want dressing to be a no-brainer, like, I want to be engaged, and Adorned in Imagination says, "I'm starting with my imagination before when I get dressed," so you're really engaging, and, like, what does Adorned in Imagination mean for you? And tell us a little bit about the series and how that's part of your journey.
Yeah. So I think how I got to really focusing on the adornment piece was the broader question of whose imagination are you living in and whose imagination are you working in? And just recognizing the reality of like every system, every office culture, every dress code, like somebody just decided in their head that this is how was going to be. And so, like, once you're starting to really articulate and pull that apart, then it's like, oh, I can decide and imagine what things are going to be. So that was a piece of it. And for me, the I have always enjoyed putting outfits together. It is like something that wakes me up. I feel grounded. It's the process of it I really enjoy. And so I think the imagination for me, when I'm talking about being adorned in imagination, is multiple parts. It's one, like my imagination. How am I thinking about all the pieces that can exist and even imagining things that don't? Like I started making wearable photos during COVID. So I'm printing my photos on silk and chiffon, and you can wear those all different kinds of ways, like a dress or a scarf or a sarong. And just recognizing, like, we can try to make any of these things. It may not work, we may not love it, but we can try it and we can see what happens. So I think that's a piece of it. And then there's this whole other facet of, or I guess 2 facets, they're all interconnected, but there's what these different cultures have imagined, their whole practices of, here's how we here's how we make fabric, here's how we cut these clothes, here's how we create jewelry. So there's this whole the cultural piece and the stories that come with that. When you think about, like, hundreds and thousands of years of tradition, that is really an amazing thing. And then there's independent, like, individual designers who, whether, like, Shaw made this ring, and it is just stunning, and she made this earring. And I found her when I was out running in Puerto Vallarta in Mexico. I found the shop, I took a photo, I was like, "I'm coming back here." And I've been back both trips when we've gone. But when you have people who are willing and bold enough and courageous enough, like you said, to say, "I'm going to build my practice around imagining these beautiful things that don't exist into the world," and then other people like us, we can go into these places and say, I love this, and I'm gonna take, I'm gonna purchase this piece and then this piece from over here. And when I put them all together because of how I imagine myself moving through the world, it's like 1 plus 1 equals 20,000, right?
Yeah.
Like, you get something just it's so unique, it's so specific to you, yet it's carrying it with it the imagination of all the pieces that got fed into it and fed into you.
Yeah.
And so that was, I would say, like, the broad thinking behind the series. And sorry, I think you were trying to say something and I cut you off.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah,
First of all, that was, like, such a word, like, when you said somebody else imagined what, work culture should be like. Like, that, like, needs an exclamation point because I don't think we really recognize that. We think it's just but somebody made it up, like, right?
yeah,
And so I think that's an important thing to acknowledge as each of us explore expressing ourselves through style.
yeah,
Um, that somebody made it up and expected us all to fit into it, and we don't have to, you know?
exactly.
I love that. I also and I like, from my perspective, like, I have always struggled with obesity. And I found that plus size fashion also kind of had some of those, like, we all know the fashion industry disenfranchises and excludes people who are in larger bodies. And then, like, there's, this, wear black because it's slimming. And I almost feel like, the wearing black is like so you can disappear or you can hide or like you're not vibrant. And then a lot of times plus size clothing uses color in a way that's it doesn't give you dignity really.
Yeah,
And so, like, so I feel like it's really important to acknowledge somebody imagined what they feel like you should fit in, and you
mhm,
have to acknowledge it so you can, like, change it.
yeah,
Um, that was a powerful statement you made to
thank
me.
you.
And then I also love how you talked about bringing others' imagination into your closet and your style. And for this conversation, I wanted to wear this dress, which is from Kenya. It's a wax print, and I love
It's
color. But
beautiful.
thank you, I
Yeah,
love it. And I have two jackets by this same company. It's a collective of women, and so it supports the local economy there and women's wealth and financial well being. And I love the cultural significance it has for me, and I love the fun color, like the fun pattern.
yeah,
And I feel like to me it's cultural, and so it's an expression of my roots, and these earrings are also, I think the earrings are from Ghana.
okay,
But yeah, so, I think a lot of times those societal expectations ask us to leave ourselves at home, including our culture. And so as I've been kind of exploring my style and now that I'm on the other, like I've lost this weight and that was the trigger for me to begin exploring style again. Not that I think that that has to happen. There's certainly, plus size fashion is changing. The options are still limited, but it's changing. It was just my trigger because um, it was so hard for me to shop. Like I would go, yeah, I just had so many negative experiences. I didn't like shopping anymore. So now I'm on this journey exploring. But just to be able to have the privilege of, wearing something that represents my culture is
Uh,
a huge step.
it is
Um,
huge, and I I would be really interested in hearing for you, like, as you're sitting here now, San 2025, and you're looking forward, are there things that either you imagined were off limits or that you just have always had in the back of your mind as like, this is how I want to move through the world, that you're reorienting toward now that you're allowing yourself to step into this exploration in a different way?
yeah. That's an interesting question because I used to pin outfits on Pinterest. But never like it was like, "Oh, that would be a nice alternate life." Like, I didn't think it could be my life, and then once I was able to go through the medical weight loss that I did, and I started allowing myself to, like, started wanting to explore style again, then I went back to that board and I was like, "Who am I really?" Like, I really wanted to, I really kinda it wasn't like filling up my closet again wasn't just go buy clothes, it was like, "Okay, who am I?" And I really
Yep.
started asking those questions. Um, but there are some things that I felt like were are s I'm still like, I wanna buy, but I'm still working through allowing myself to buy.
Mhm.
For example, I used to love swimming as a child. I was actually on a swim team when I was, 9, 10, 11, 12. But I haven't worn a swimsuit. I've been so intimidated by it. And at first, it was by my size, and now, I've lost 140 pounds, and that does have an effect on your body, and so now I'm intimidated by that, and so I'm working through and I have other friends, who have been on similar weight journeys as I have, who have been sharing, like, they've been able to, go buy a swimsuit and really enjoy,
Yeah.
and so I'm, like, talking to them about how they got there as inspiration. Mini skirts are the same thing, like, I like the '70s, like, I find myself being
Oh, yeah.
inspired by the '70s, but anyway, mini skirts are something else that I would love to put in my closet someday. So it's been a really interesting journey. I definitely I wanted to put color in, like, I got to a point where I was tired of wearing black, like, I looked at my wardrobe and it was all black because I believe the black is slimming thing. I do believe black is an elegant color, but right now, I just need to, like, not wear black for a
You
while.
only need so much.
Right.
Like, you need a good print. You need some things that pop.
Right, you need the little black dress, and then,
Yeah.
so I've really been exploring color, and I find myself gravitating toward classic lines or either things that represent African culture, and then bold colors. And so I'm really and in ways that feel powerful.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm really filling my closet with lately. And it makes me happy,
Yeah.
and I think that's important. Like that, like when you were talking earlier about dressing in ways that made you feel like it was really you. I think that that's really important, and I think that that's something that is important to connect with, versus, like and I get some people do, need a no-brainer, and I think neutrals have, but I think, like, dressing should be something that one of the first things that you can do that can engage your mind with yourself in
Yeah.
every day. And that's the way I've been looking at it lately.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you just named in terms of the having the community and, like, the people to fall back on and to talk to, and that also can just help put, like, little reminders, little, like, "Let's unlearn it, let's think differently, here's how," because those messages that we get can be so deep, so deep. And, like, I avoided red for the longest time. I mean, years and years. I just had this whole message in my mind. I can't wear red, I can't this, and that. And then I had it on one day. I had thrown a hoodie on because for a meeting, and Hannah was like, "Red looks really good on you."
Oh,
And I was
wow.
like, "Oh, wow. Red can that can be a color I can wear." And sometimes you just need someone to help you, like, just fine tune it a little bit
Yes,
to find your
yes.
way back or beyond, however you wanna think about it, but the community makes a big difference.
It really does, it really does. Um, I know that your style exploration has, taken you around the world and you've been inspired by other cultures. Can you share, like, about some of the cultures and pieces and designers that are inspiring you right now?
Mhm. Yeah. I back in 20 as part of, our nonprofit work, so with Ideas X Lab, in 2016, we went to Senegal, West Africa. We went to Dakar, we went up to Cap Saint Louis, and that was such a powerful trip to see, like, we did some batik fabric dyeing, like, with the wax and, um, to see just the patterns, the vibrancy, the cuts were so different, and it both the patterns, the cuts, and then also, like, the jewelry and just, like, the way of expressing yourself was so different, the way people related to body, like, body shape, body size, how you wrap things, there wasn't this, like, hiding it. It
Mhm,
was a celebration of, like, "This is my body, and my body is getting me like, we're on this journey together, and it's beautiful, and, like, we're here to be fabulous." And so that trip was really impactful, um, just as such a stark contrast to what I had ever experienced before, and as part of that there were 15 of us on the trip, and we all had a custom outfit made, like,
oh,
in
wow.
traditional African fabric, so I had, like, a suit made, and it was this blue and yellow. Theo had a suit made. So just that entire experience, that seeing the imagination and the lens of that at work was so wonderful, and then you jump all of these years forward, now I'm in Denver. My friend Koya Nyongi, she has a company called Let Me Show You Different. She's the second episode of Adorned in Imagination, a conversation with her, which was so much fun.
It was.
Um, but she hosts the African Creators Festival here in Denver, and I think 2025 is year 3 of it. And so she's originally from Africa. She's been in Denver 8 years, and she brings every year for AF's African Creators Festival, ACF, she brings different African designers in, clothing, jewelry, accessories. It varies by year. But the first one that I got to intersect with, she had brought in Adele Dayak from Kenya, and this is a small choker from Adele. I have now, like, a lot of pieces from Adele.
I can't wait to
Um,
buy some.
I just they
Excited.
are just, like, such stunning, they feel contemporary and powerful, they're recycled metals, there's a whole team that makes them. So, like, to be able to meet her, to be at the trunk show, to try stuff on, and then to also have Adele and Koya be like, "Try this on, this looks great," like, it helped to overcome some of the questions internally that I had about, like, what can I wear?
Mhm.
What feels right? And um, some of the pieces were so, like, I mean, so big, but they're just
Yeah.
amazing. So that has really been wonderful. So through African Creators Festival, Adele, Denai Madanda was in last year. Her brand is called House of Stone from Zimbabwe. So I have 2 of her pieces, and hers are in Zimbabwe, there are a lot of, like, really earthy tones, sand, tans, taupes, creamy, so they're a lot softer tones, but the cut and the way that you can wear them is just beautiful, and, so those are 2 that I've been introduced through African Creators Festival, and then a few years ago, we were, Theo and Hannah, Drake and I went to Barcelona, and there was a boutique called Backstage 46, and I,
Mhm.
like, found it on Google Maps, and I'm like, "Hannah, we have to go to this place," and we walk in, and I was just like it was one of those times when you walk in, it's like, this was a place where stuff was actually made for me, and I it is so rare that I find that I was like, "I don't know what to do,"
Yeah.
almost.
Wow.
And so Hannah was like to the person who welcomed us, she's like, "Okay, can you please take this dress and this shirt off this mannequin? Josh needs to try this on. Okay, Josh needs to try that on." So, like, I went and pulled things. It was so much fun. But I was introduced to all of these different designers who now, like, I'm connected with on Instagram. I'm featuring them in this series. So, like, this top is Mesnikovic, so they're based in Barcelona. So it's all small batch, very like avant-garde contemporary style and fit. So their pieces I've loved. There was a company called Craxitude, and
Mhm.
that is based in Romania. And they just do really interesting, almost cross-cultural cuts of clothing. And then, of course, like as we look at the Western Hemisphere, I mentioned Cassandra Shaw, who's imported by Arta. So this is her ring, which, like, the
That's cool.
detail is just so
Ooh,
pretty. Um,
that
so I have
is.
this one, and then this earring is from her,
Uh-huh.
and, I mentioned before we went live that I had been to Mexico City for Art Week, and I went with Biennial of the Americas, which if anybody can go on their Art Week trip, it was so much fun to go to the galleries and the different art spaces as a group in this like curated experience. Um, but through the biennial, they hosted an event here in Denver and brought in a trunk. It's like a trunk show of different or designers from the Western Hemisphere, and one of them was Quata Jewelry, and it's twin sisters,
Mhm.
and they make a lot of their jewelry with found antler, which was really
Interesting.
interesting. And so, like, the piece that I have, it's this circular necklace, and it's like a silver band, and then a whole piece of it is antler. And so when you're
Wow.
holding it, it looks like a weapon, but when you're wearing it, it's just like this really interesting piece.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so just through all of these, I've really loved being exposed to the breadth of all of these different designers from these different continents and different countries, and the way that they're using all of these natural materials to make things, the things that they're imagining. And so part of the Adorned in Imagination series is to highlight their work, but also a bit of a thank you. Because all of their pieces have given me all of these materials, these ideas, these glimpses into how I want to show up and how I can put things together, and that's been a really beautiful thing to have.
That is so cool, and for everybody who's watching, when we get the replay and it has, like it puts the video in a post, we'll put, like, names and links in the post so
Yeah,
that
we
way
can do that.
you can find yeah, you can find some of these designers and explore, I can't wait to buy some to tell the chat. Um So I wanna ask, 2 more questions. I wanna at first I wanna ask, like, earlier you talked about when you were younger being inspired by literature. Can you talk a little bit about more about how literature inspires your style?
When I was younger, and this was back when, like, Pizza Hut did the book club, so you got,
Mhm.
like, a personal pan pizza if you read 10 books in the
Uh-huh.
summer,
Uh-huh.
and, my parents also motivated us to read books with, like, you got something, but I
Uh-huh.
just love to read, so, like, a lot of summers, I was reading, like, 40 books, um, all of the Lord so much Tolkien that it's kinda crazy. I did learn to write Elvish for a little while, if we're being honest.
Wow, that's
Um
cool.
I read a lot of books about dragons,
Uh-huh.
Narnia, just everything that I could get
Mhm.
my hands on. Um, and I think the descriptions in all of those of just I have always kind of and at this point I identify as a non-binary person. Um, and so throughout my life, I have always looked across the spectrum of what I could see and witness and like pulled the little pieces that actually resonated with me. And so when I think back to and even think back to like seeing things visualized in the Lord of the Rings movies,
Uh-huh.
based on descriptions in the book, I can see like there's, like, little bits of Galadriel or Arwen or Aragorn or, like, these different people that are, like, in silhouettes that I think about. I also loved Greek and Roman mythology.
Mhm.
I loved that. So, like, the Odyssey, all different kinds of things. And so a lot when I think about wearable photos and draping, especially silk and chiffon, the way that those fabrics can move, a lot of that goes back to think like the descriptions and even sculptures of things from that time period of how fabric was utilized and how it interacted with the body.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I have just really like, I'm working on a science fiction book right now, and the description of what all of the characters are adorned in, like, that is a huge part of the world that I have built just because of how much I think my reading early on gave me like a window beyond the world that I was in terms of what was possible. And now I feel like I'm embodying a lot of what I picked up from there and then putting my own take on it in terms of what does it mean for me as a person living in 2025 and how I want to move through the world.
That is so cool. I love that you're like, because books really fire up your imagination. You're imagining what the characters look like
Yeah.
based on the description, and then letting that be part of the imagination that informs your style.
Mhm.
I really, I love that. Um, what is next? And I'm just kind of looking for any questions. I don't want to miss any. But what is next for? Like, I know you have 2 episodes out. Have you published the 3rd one? Posted the 3rd one
There's
yet?
4 out.
Oh, there's 4 out.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was traveling.
As
I'm
of
sorry, I
this
missed some.
morning, no, you're fine. There's a lot going on in our world right now. There's a lot going on. So there's 4 out right now.
Uh-huh.
So the intro episode, the conversation with Koya, and then one on Adele and one on House of Stone came out today.
Okay.
And the next one will be Sedai Designs. So
Mhm.
they are Maasai warriors who are creating jewelry, and their work is amazing as well. As of now, the series will have at least 18 episodes.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yes, it was ambitious. Um, so there's one more kind of dialogue-based conversation with Flora Jane, who runs the Biennial of the Americas, and then all of the rest are designer focused. And so I reached out to all of the designers either through Instagram or text or email or WhatsApp. And so some of the episodes include like videos that the designers have recorded responding to some things. Some include videos from fashion shows, or like the one that launched today. Denai spoke at the Creators Festival last year, I had a clip from that, so that's in there. Because one of the things that I have really valued is when I get to hear from the designers, their story, why it is they create what they create. I think there's a quote you and I both resonate with from Antonio Rodriguez, who I also bought a piece from in Barcelona, which is I don't create these pieces to dress bodies, but to liberate identities. And that is just so powerful to me. So when you get to hear from the designers to understand like what is the thing behind what they created, I think that gives it for me so much more like even more depth and thinking like it plays into how I can incorporate it.
Yeah.
So that was the goal with the series. And then I'm sure that I'll after South Korea and Japan this summer, those I'm sure I will make some episodes from that. So I'm seeing how this first series of episodes go, and then thinking also looking at how does that, as I allow myself to experiment with how I showed up for the series. That was the first time I've never let myself have press on nails before that were
Uh-huh.
long
Uh-huh.
because I do a lot of physical activity and I had all of these reasons in my head why I couldn't have them. And so like for the 2 days when I recorded everything, I had my nails done and like I loved that look, and that was a new permission that I had and gave to myself. So even in the creation of it, it has let me be a little bit more free, which I've really valued.
That's awesome, and it's worth celebrating every little
Thank
freedom
you.
we give
Yeah,
ourselves. I love that. I went natural. This is the freedom I gave my one of the freedoms I gave myself. I'd always worn my hair straightened because I was always told like in corporate America, a black woman has to straighten her hair. And then when COVID happened, I thought, I'm gonna go natural. This is a good time to go natural.
exactly.
I've loved it, I don't wanna turn back, and then, um but I've always done different things. The first time I actually wore a fro, though, was earlier this year, and I had a good stylist in Atlanta, and I was just like, we would try different things. I'm like, my hair, when I went natural, I, like, took it all off, like, teeny-weeny, so it's grown out a lot,
Yeah.
and so I was like, let's try a fro, and it just felt like when she turned me around in the chair, it just felt like this power, like my power had been unleashed. Like it was just so free and flowing. My hair was longer than I thought it was, like it's, shoulder length. And it was just it's so empowering. And I was just like, I have to do this now. Like this, it was like a new unlock.
Yeah.
So I celebrate that, like, giving yourself, a new freedom and celebrate mine as well, and anyone's. Like, I think we need to give ourselves those moments to celebrate and those discoveries and those, ways forward into ourselves.
I totally agree with that. And in terms of what you just said and looking back, like you have taken a lot of self portraits and like the way, like your hair evolves in them, you're wearing all these different, like you're doing different poses, but there is like the best way I can describe it is like just like this inner grounded, like radiance that is coming through those of like it feels like in those photos you are stepping into a different place, like you are embodying something, um, and it's really beautiful. So I have loved seeing those photos in particular and the fro because, like you said, we when we first met, like that was not how you were moving through the
Mhm.
world. And so to see the vibrancy of that image and like the framing, and it was so stunning.
Mhm.
Um, I just appreciate hearing about how that piece and the stylist in Atlanta like was there to be supportive of moving into that part of your journey.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And I mean, just taking pictures of myself and enjoying that was, part of my journey too, was that was something that I didn't do before. And that's something that I hope to inspire, people to do. Like, I, as a health writer, I've written so many weight loss success stories. And then I pause because I feel like you're never like, it's always before and after, and there's never an after. Like, it's like, this is where I am today. But, when I would interview people and say, okay, do you have a picture of yourself at your higher weight? Most people have like maybe one or two. And I think people have so many different complicated feelings, major ones being shame,
Yeah,
around being in photos, and I did too. And, to be able to, like, break through that is a big step too. So I hope that other people can make that journey because to me, writing this and, like, the journey that you've been on and what I'm on and the writing that I'm doing is like, if we can liberate ourselves enough to express ourselves in clothing, then to me, that's a step to expressing ourselves in other ways and to liberating ourselves in other ways. And that's something that I feel like um, we all need to do in the world right now, especially.
I agree with that. I agree with that. It actually makes me think of a question for you,
Mhm,
um, kind of tying into what you were just saying.
mhm.
But is there like a message? and we all relate to our bodies differently, but is there, like, a message you send to your body? Like, do you have a dialogue with your body about how as a being, you like, the collective of you is moving through the world? Is that a part of your practice or process?
No, but maybe I should.
Uh,
Um, I mean, I have messages from my childhood, like, I had a great aunt who, she was a home ec teacher, and she was kind of in the era when, you know, posture was very important, and so she taught me and my cousins and my sisters about posture and how to carry yourself, and, so that's part of it, of but it's really kind of more of almost like I'm hearing her voice or I'm hearing the reminder of, how to carry myself through the world. But it's never been like I've never had a message like that to my body. That's a really intriguing idea. I'm gonna have to experiment with
mm.
that.
The way that it has, um the shift that I went through mentally, was like I had to have this mental shift from, like, a thin mentality to,
Mhm.
like, a strong mentality.
Mm.
Um, and this gets back into, like, some of the challenges with disordered eating and body image, but, like, what is it what are so then as I was, like, deconstructing a lot of that, even going into a locker room, like, there's a lot of what are you supposed to cover? My body doesn't feel good today, like, all of these different things, and so
Mhm.
then I was just like, "Well, my body got me here. Like, I have been on this journey because my body was able to get me here, and nothing about my body is perfect, but I can be really grateful and proud of it that it got me here." And we can be and so, like, every day, even if you're tired or, like, bloated or, like, you're feeling strong, like, the good and the not great, the message that I had to keep reinforcing was, like, "You're exactly what you needed to be today to get here." And over time as a practice,
Mhm.
for me, just for, like, in how I relate to my body, that was really helpful to start actually having a dialogue of, like, "This is really hard right now, and it feels physically really hard, but you're doing a great job." And to
That is
think
really
about it, like, it's almost like mind, body, spirit, all of these things are in relation, like, they're in harmony with each other.
Uh-huh.
And so that's how I was, like, thinking about what does the conversation look like, but I
Yeah.
even feel like with you're doing your photos, like, there's a message that you're sending to your body.
Mhm.
You may not be articulating it, but you're sending it of, "I think you're worthy to be here," like, all of these different things. So I was just curious as you were talking about that, if that was a
Yeah.
specific conversation you might be having.
No, but I am inspired. Thank you for that. Um, we are coming up on almost an hour. Is there anything that you would like to share or talk about? Like, I would love for people to get turned on to Adorn an Imagination. Like, where can people find you? Like, where, like,
Mhm.
definitely we can follow you on Substack because you're on Substack now. Welcome.
I am.
Um,
Thank you.
but like, anything that you would like to share, and then I know a couple people just joined. We've mentioned some designers and some items here and events, so we'll drop those in the replay post so you can find those things. There's anything else that you'd like to share, Josh?
I think one thing I would add before we talk about where to find me,
Mhm.
would be that part of what has been fun in terms of imagining new things is also practicing that in times of constraint. And we can overthink, like, we can fall into habits, and it's like, well, this shirt goes with those pants, goes with these shoes, goes with this necklace, and that's a thing, and we don't change it, right? And we can kind of get in some ruts because it's comfortable. And so one thing I would invite people to do is have, like, a 3 or 5 minute challenge of, like, that's your full amount of time to not only pick your outfit, but be in it and walk out the door.
Yeah.
And that can be very scary, but the reality is, like, if it doesn't look great, you just don't wear it again.
Mhm,
Like, you just don't wear it again. But I have discovered a lot of different ways of pairing things, new love for things, by having those kind of constraints. So that's just one, like, if you're feeling stuck, I feel like that's a great challenge, even if you decide not to leave your house, just
mhm.
to do it as an
Get right
exercise.
with it. I think it's a good
But for the new folks that have joined, and for everyone that's been here, and I've really valued you creating this space for us to connect. The Adorned in Imagination series that I launched, there's 4 episodes that are live right now, and you can find them here on Substack. You can also find them on my website, joshmiller.ventures. And so that series is kind of embodying everything that we've been talking about in terms of what's the transformational power of style and story when those things intersect, and also the power of cross cultural imagination and pieces and community, and the fact that every day we get to imagine ourselves into existence and we can be adorned in imagination, ours and other people's. And there's power when those things come together. And so the series is a few conversations and more focused on sharing the work of designers who have helped me think more expansively about how, at this juncture in my life, I am moving through the world.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for this conversation. This has been great. I really appreciate your time and your openness and just having this conversation that's had so many jewels in it. Thank you so much.
This has been a blast. I appreciate it, Sean. I hope that whether it's here in Denver, maybe in the fall for African Creators Festival, or wherever, however we can find ourselves in the same space together, I'm very excited for that.
Me too. Me too. Definitely. Have a good evening, and we'll post a replay as soon as it's available.
Sounds great. See you
Take
later.
care.